bot lane, though, is that Lucian Nami. It's going to be the Nami side of it, so there's potential to pick something like the Lucian away from it. Typically, you see that the other way around. If someone early locks the Lucian, it's going to be the Nami and then something like a Draven or locked in against it. So BLG, lock in the Nami first, and W go towards strong, stable lane of the Varus.
Strong, stable lane, and also, yeah, I would argue with the Yuumi being banned away, it just kind of like lends itself away. We did see obviously a lot of answers being the Lucian into the Lucian, now it being the Zeri Lulu. Not going to go with that one there, saying look, we can go with a little bit more hard engage, going to be a little bit more poke if they really feel it. Can be on hit, can be lethality. I like the Vi here for Heng. It is just a nice engage to kind of get on top of that slippery character that is the Lucian if you really want to try and hard force and kill him off. So curious to see where we see Shanks going, because remember, we think of Shanks, we think of, you know, these kind of big, you know, kind of control mages in the mid lane. Not only that, but also the Sylas. So Ryze, Sylas, you get that single target CC down. If he gets those champions, you can just blow up Elk.
Yeah, and I'm very surprised to not see the Ashe or the Ryze even hovered or looked at so far. Looks like we're going for a little bit more initiation potential from that Vi. You already talked about that being very good into the AD carry pool right now. And of course denies some of the carry junglers because Vi can get on top of them as well. This was obviously going to be on the table, though. The Ryze is locked in. It is something of a Yagao specialty, I'd say. He has liked to be someone that can get involved in the map, use some push and roam champions. I remember him very much as an Ahri player. I've kind of said that Ahri's pulled out of the meta. For those that don't know, I very much love that champion. But to see this player and Yagao pick up, again, something like that Ryze, it fits into the playstyle which he has honed over the JDG years.
Yeah, gotta go towards the Ashe. It's a full poke bot lane. They are looking for pure arms race supremacy in that lane to make sure they have as much pressure as always. And to be perfectly honest, I just think the Ashe in particular is oppressive. Like, regardless of how the laning phase goes, regarding how, you know, how well or how badly you're able to kind of get into the setup, it just feels like with that Ashe arrow being on such an unholy cooldown, it's just too easy to try and pick her up and say, look, even if everything goes to crap in the first 20 minutes, we still have an Ashe arrow every 40 seconds.
Yeah, but so that's absolutely true, because that mid game becomes so unplayable after a certain while. One of the games in the LEC was a great example of this. If you want to do some homework, that would be the Koi game versus Vitality, where Trimby was pinging perks off a cooldown with that arrow from just across the map, just throwing them out cooldown after cooldown. And just the threat of it is very annoying to know that actually if I'm pushing up here, am I safe? Is there an arrow going to be coming at me? Something like a Ryze who wants to play the map. We already talked about Yagao wanting to shove, roam, play the map. If an arrow comes in to shut that down, maybe that could upset what BLG want to do. They already have two very strong lanes, though. Mid and bot lane, they scale very well. 1 to 2 item spike for both mid and bot, something very powerful to play around. But what now I'm interested coming into the second round of bans is, all right, you have left your jungler now to second round rotation as BLG. You don't see that often for a lot of pro teams, and that's why we're seeing some of these specialty picks like the Nidalee go away. We've already seen the Kindred be banned as well. You've lost that Elise. Do you have anything that can contend with the Vi early, or are you going to have to go towards something like the Strani? I would imagine something like a Wukong would be looked at, but I'm just wondering what Shen is feeling like now with the pool being reduced.
I would love this. I would love this.
There we go.
Yeah,
we get it again.
Shanks. I love this pickup. Yeah, love this pickup. It does stop a lot of what Ryze wants to do. It scales with it as well. But not only that, it's one of Shanks' little pocket picks from the LDL, so he knows how to play this champion.
And he played it in his last series. It was a 0-2 to OMG. It was a scrappy series, we'll say that. There was a Baron steal in the first game when Shanks was playing the Cassiopeia, but he did get like a 4-man Cassiopeia role in that game and had a really good showing of things. Shanks has been very much stepping up on these pocket picks, like the Cassiopeia. And in this game, where you actually have a lot of short-range champions now, if Lucian dashes into a Cassiopeia, you die. If Ryze wants to stand and fight against a Cassiopeia, you also kind of die, and particularly when you have that Vi helping you set things up, I think Shanks is once again set up for success. So the player which has been performing probably best for WE so far, in a good position to strut their stuff.
Yep, absolutely. I think WE are giving themselves what they are comfortable with. They're giving themselves a win condition in towards that bot side as well with hard engage. I would like to see what they want to try and go into this Gnar now. Gnar, just one of those picks that could be very blindable right now. You just kind of feel like you can kind of if you can play safe enough during the first few levels, you will be fine. You get that steroid of health once you go into Mega every, 3 or 4 minutes or so. And obviously later on, it becomes an awful lot sooner in the late stages. But we are going to see Biubiu go towards that Jayce. So looking to try and really punish the mini Gnar and maybe look to try and just all in on that top side. So I will say WE have plenty of choices of where they want to try and get this early game going. Maybe, kind of spike themselves into a mid-game lead. But I don't want them to get too much choice paralysis. If you go a little bit too far, you stretch yourself a little bit too far thin, this BLG lineup will destroy you.
Yeah, so that is very, very true when you have something like a Ryze on the table as well, where they can just turn up everywhere. So you basically have to deal with 2 junglers, right? I think the strength of what WE have here is that they have 4 fairly good anti-dive, longer range characters. The Cassiopeia is more mid-range, sure, but if you dive into the Cassiopeia, they get to...
And of course, this is a big match for both these teams. Both of them want to try and continue their march towards playoffs, but only one shall be victorious in that endeavor. BLG, very much the favor coming in here, but WE will and almost certainly be hoping for slightly different favors as we jump straight onto the Rift. The Jayo's roar.
Brief level 1 setup. Both teams looking to see if there's something around this bot lane. You already talked about that Ashe being very oppressive in mid-game. Also very oppressive in the first couple of levels too. Something which Goldborg has been talking a lot about as well over on the LEC is how a lot of zero lanes in 2v2 is pretty much decided in the first couple of waves. You have 2 or 3 waves where you're looking to get level 2 first, shove people off the wave, take heavy HP trades, and particularly when you have double Halo Blades, as you see from the Varus and the Ashe, control an entire half of the map just from the first couple of waves and pin the enemy under turret. The Ashe is so proficient at this, with that level 1 volley being able to push wave and poke out at the same time. And of course, the power of Halo Blades is no slouch in that regards either. So, as you're saying, probably will be on BLG to either try and find themselves a preferential level 1 trade or trying to play around that one-eyed spike. They're not going to get much help from this Wukong, though, who's getting shut down early on this buff.
Yeah, this Biubiu, though, needs to be a little bit careful. I like the fact that he used the blast cone there to make sure that he was not getting pinched upon more than one person. But Elk, really nice pathing there from the WD bot lane means they're able to kind of get a really solid setup. But Bin might fancy this setup here. Heng is here, though. They might actually try and look to trade this back. He flashes! No! He flashes! He took the bait! Hook, line, and sinker! And on bot side, they've killed off Elk. WE have just won the early game!
I can't believe it. I'm trying to collect my thoughts here after just this despair of Bin knowing that it's really important to get a logo over on the Jayce early, particularly as Jayce versus Gnar. You understand that actually it's very about the first couple of levels there too. If Jayce can get a good poke trade off, things get problematic. In the bot lane though, it plays out pretty much how we were calling about it. You know that the Ashe and the Varus want to take lane dominance control very early on, first couple of waves. Elkanon, they walk up to the wave and they think, okay, maybe we've got an inside track, maybe we can get ourselves a bit of control of this wave, and they just completely disrespect the damage coming out of this Ashe and Varus. How the heck did they get the kill though? They literally just walk up and they die. They literally just walk up and, you know what the real difference maker is there? Varus Ia has Grievous Wounds on it. That heal did less value because they cast it in the Varus E.
Yeah, and this is now Biubiu trying to see if he can survive this gang top. But look, with the accelerated gate, or gate of acceleration, he should be just fine. We'll have to reset, though, after TPing back into lane. Should pretty much lose his entire wave, if I'm being totally honest, as there's not really a lot else he can do. But that's a smart thing. He did what BLG's bot lane did not. He recalled when he knew he was going to die.
Oh, gosh. We have to take stock of what this means, though, because we've had a lot of early action. We have seen Heng get involved as well. Vi has an assist to their name. Jayce has that early tier, and Shanks is actually going to pick up that waves in top side to actually bounce out the rest of the map. So one of the things that we were just a little bit worried about there going to be just recovered a little bit from WE. I am very happy with how WE have been doing this early game, and their bot lane is continuing to get dominance. No flash here.
Elk! Oh, Lord, 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 Lord. That's not what you need, my dude. And I think this is the problem when you pick something like a Lucian Nami. It can bait you into a little bit of a false sense of security because you're like, oh, we have the damage. And it's like, yeah, at level 4 or 5, you're level 2, my son. You got nothing.
And it's going to get worse from there, right? Because now you're at the point where you're effectively waiting until you hit one item on the Lucian Nami. It is all on Yagao to do something for his team at this point. BLG, they just took down Weibo, one of our great rosters in this league so far that a lot of people have a lot of hopes for. But they are falling short in this early game to WE, and it's been through those side lanes. It's been through top lane and bot lane. Yagao is the last remaining member on BLG who's not fallen behind.
And even then, look at the CS, he's still 20 behind, so like, you know, like, it's not exactly ideal.
There's not the odd one out. He's actually, he hasn't died,
you just
but
have
he
to look between the lines. Yeah, you just have to look between the lines just a little bit. Now Biubiu roaming up towards this top side, kind of getting the swap off there. Of course, we did see Shanks TPing towards the top lane to make sure that they did not lose a lot of the farm on that top side. And again, this is, look, regardless of how we want to talk about BLG and how they're doing, this is fantastic first 5 minutes for WE. They are punishing BLG so effectively and just making it so it's like, hey, look, you can't underestimate us. You can't come in here and just expect to win. You have to play.
And play they are. They're going to have to find themselves something. I'm trying to think of ways that BLG are really looking to buck this early game trend at this point, because you're going to be at a point where the Ashe and the Varus are going to be either pinning back your Lucian Nami or causing problems around the rest of the map. Even if at that point you're bringing in Realm Warps on top of them, you need either Yagao to be really strong or Shun to be really strong. Neither of them are in a great position, and looking at the minimap, Heng is looking to twist the screws even deeper. There's no flash on the Lucian still.
There's no, yeah, he's just going to get out. They're going to sacrifice the Nami. Lwandy picking up that kill. This is just clean if I'm being totally honest. Lwandy though, he's going to be with the heal, keeping him alive. WE will not lose a death just yet, but again, clean play coming out from WE, and they are just punishing time and time again.
But that is like, hey, can we get a heal? No, we have a heal at home, because On casts the heal and dies as he goes down. But Hope has the one to save his support. WE, they're drawing so much pressure. The grass is always greener. It's always greener. I suppose, doesn't it go yellow when it dies at this point? Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that by definition, it is greener. It is by definition greener. But yeah, I mean, it's just becoming so apparent right now that BLG are just not prepared to deal with falling this far behind. It's a near 3,000 gold lead at 7 minutes into the game. They're going to have total control over this mid lane. They're going to have total control over the entire bot side of the map, which means that dragon stackings are very much a thing. And even just looking at the item differentials is that, you know, you're trying to deal with this Varus who's just stacking up a tier, and with Lwandy getting closer and closer, already got his Ionian Boots of Lucidity, he's going to have his Umbral Glaive so fast, like even just like regardless of his own damage, which he is still putting in work on right now, it's still going to be ridiculous to try and hold vision because the Umbral Glaive is broken.
Yeah, as soon as that item comes in, BLG are going to have some very difficult questions to ask about. Okay, we need to close the distance against this long-range composition, but we're behind, and there's this Umbral Glaive in play as well, which removes even more from the map. See Elton trying to find something, but the barrier's there. You're losing the flash, and when you're looking for your first big fight to try and turn around the game, losing flashes like that on a key carry like the Lucian, that doesn't make it any easier. It feels like BLG, they're getting quite desperate, trying to find some way to break the pressure. At least Herald is going to be up right now. Maybe they can find some angle around that. Wukong very strong around that. But Bin, I don't know if you really want to be taking this fight. Not entirely sure. Viol available makes me a little scared.
I think he thought he had like half a second left to get the Gnar ultimate off, to get him into the wall. Wukong follows up with the Cyclone. It's a fantastic setup of a lot of different things. But I will say, you know, for Heng, very, very good trigger discipline. Kind of saying, look, he didn't, you know, he's going in because he feels confident. That means the Wukong is probably in the vicinity. So backs himself up, does not let himself get baited, and honestly, just really good, you know, clean, cohesive play coming out here from WE. So right now, they are going to try and just kind of just deny a Rift Herald. And again, if you get first Dragon and first Herald into the game, that's just more gold, more power available to you. Shun sitting off to the wings right now is a longsword down, but this could be a full 5v5.
Yeah, Wukong very strong around Herald. I think this is one of the big moments that BLG need to look to find a win. You're looking for a big Cyclone, but no flash to get that in place. Maybe Realm can do the deal instead. They don't take it.
They do not take it. Rift Herald is down to a little bit. Oh, Chain of Corruption lands. That's been chasing back.
Oh, they steal
Stolen away on very low. He has to flash back. They go straight in on top of the Wukong, and now he is dead. They trade jungler for jungler. First kill of the game going over to BLG. They're not going to land the Petrifying Gaze, but you can see now with Lwandy just kind of peppering in Yagao, keeping him slow, keeping him available for it. One more! Oh, the fat volley lands. He's dead. Has to flash away, but the important thing for WE is you trade one for one and you get the Herald.
And that is one of the last plays you can see before maybe some item spikes come in for the Lucian Nami, that BLG are really going to be ahead of Team W's composition. WE get that Herald, they get trade even in kills. For me, that is such a big win for them in one of the most risky portions of the game that was left remaining to them. Gotta see how this ends up kind of coming through. I think, honestly, this is a situation which BLG put themselves into when Wukong lost his flash. When he tried to get that kill onto Lwandy earlier by flashing in, that means you didn't have the flash for a big play like this. You couldn't get on top of the Ashe, you couldn't get on top of the Varus, and while Yagao gets some damage down by finding an angle through that kind of flanking brush, it's just not enough to threaten the long-range composition of WE. And that's something that's going to be a big factor to consider in the big objective fights later into the game.
And again, WE pushing themselves forward. It's a 3,500 gold lead. They are controlling the map. They've got the Youmuu's Ghostblade already finished up now onto Hope. He is so dangerous right now. Having this level of early lethality is disgusting when you have something like an Ashe Varus. You will just do so much damage in such a short amount of time that it's going to take a while for you to try and get back in on top of this. So looking at what BLG can do to stem the bleeding, stop this from moving forward. The Chain of Corruption lands. There's the damage I was talking about through the piercing arrow and of course the blighted quiver, but they aren't able to follow up because the tidal wave does come out.
I can see Shanks is on the move. He's been hovering around this bot side as well. BLG just being really pinned in around this bot turret. I think it's absolutely right to mention the itemization coming out from the Varus too. You have the luxury of having an humble glaive on your support. Go for the more stats than yourself. We've been seeing this a little bit from Jhin players as well, wanting to get a bit more kill combo. And speaking of kill combos, you can see that Heng and Shanks just hovering between the lanes and putting everyone under threat.
And he's got nowhere to go. He's dead. Nowhere else for him to run to. Even if he had a flash, he wouldn't have been able to use it because the miasma was down. And this, I'm going to be totally honest, I am impressed by WE coming into this first game. They are doing so well and just really putting a bit of a beat down onto BLG. BLG came in kind of thinking, all right, cool, we'll win this. We'll take ourselves moving forward up to a little bit more in terms of our, our setup. We're looking towards playoffs, maybe top 4. WE are saying, nah, man, you gotta still play. You gotta still try and come against us because we're not gonna take this one lying down. And I'm just so impressed at how aggressive and how genuinely smart they've come into this game 1.
And you consider the results which they had just before this. BLG winning against Weibo, one of the stronger teams on paper. WE losing against OMG, who, while are very entertaining, are not very consistent. To have WE coming out of the gates at this kind of pace, it's definitely a little unexpected from the both of us. And now BLG are going to have to start really racking their brains as to how they're going to mount a comeback in this game, if at all. VODS talks about how you got to try and close that distance. Maybe a Realm War can help. Maybe Ryze can get back on the table. But every single person on BLG is now like sizably behind. At least Bin has managed to accrue a bit of a CS lead despite being that kill down. And Biubiu still, though, showing the respect that's needed to not give BLG a big win condition through this top lane.
I mean, he knows that he's going to be considered the weak link. He knows that they're going to be focusing on him a lot more. Dragon was being taken on the bot side, so he does not have Heng to try and help him out. So he just says, you know what? I don't see Ryze. I don't really see the Wukong, and they're definitely not a Dragon. I need to back away. I need to just accept that this tower is probably going to go down. Nothing else to be done with it. And don't forget, though,
there's the arrow.
Ashe arrow. I'll hold my point for a second. Gets blocked on the way to the top side. But don't forget, the Rift Herald was on Biubiu, who used it to get a couple of plates top. So he's not even really losing out in this regard. Yes, a bit of CS is a bit annoying, to say the least. But it's not the end of the world. It's just really smart play from WE saying, look, BLG are going to try and overload one side of the map, and we're just not going to let them have their way. They're going to get something out of it, but they're not going to get everything they want.
Yeah. Full plates for Hope on this bot side as well. Bot lane dominance has meant that the cross buff has had to come in. You don't really want to play around this Varus now. You don't really want to have to play around that Ashe once they start kind of going through all those volleys and scouting out those hawk shots as well. And once again, WE showing the respect that's needed to stop BLG getting easy answers across the board. Seeing resets coming in. Got, of course, the first 2 dragons over to WE. Have to consider that as well. Dragon stacking going for WE is expected due to their bot lane performing so well in this early game. But you go 5 minutes into the future, you're probably on Soul Point, you're setting up for the next dragon, and BLG, if you're waiting for item spikes, you might not have the luxury of doing that after that point. If you're having Soul threatened over you, already there is a timer on this game if that wasn't obvious enough from the leads which WE are accruing.
Yeah, and I think the big thing as well, I look at in terms of the mid lane and everything like that, is we talked about how Yagao was kind of a little bit of a beacon of a shining light, but Shanks already level 11, so he's already 2 levels, maybe 11 and a half ahead of Yagao. He's already got his Rod of Ages finished up as well, way before Yagao has been able to finish up his. So that's going to be ticking up very, very nicely. Should have that around the 24-minute mark, and this is where, actually probably even 23, so this is where the game, you know, you're relying on scaling, yes, but it's not as if, you know, the scaling doesn't exist for WE. Jayce will still have fantastic damage. The Varus lethality will be great with the poke on the Ashe. So it's, yes, you do have very, very strong champions for the late game for BLG, but it's not impossible for WE to deal with.
Yeah, well, what I will say is, there is no such thing as scaling from W which stops them from dying to a 5-man Gnar and a 5-man Cyclone. That is like,
correct.
In best case scenario, I think that BLG are always in a position where if they do close the distance somehow, they have the damage to take down 5 relatively squishy champions. Of course, Vi is a little tankier than most, and you've got a Saris coming from the Cassiopeia. It's not going to be easy days, but you know, you do see these 5 long-range champions comparative to their opponents, and yeah, BLG, if they can close that distance, there's something to play around. It's just going to be so damn hard to do that when the lead which WE has means that all the poke which they're throwing out matters that much more. It's the difference between if they were in an even game being at 2/3 HP, 3/4 HP when they're making the engage, as opposed to being into this super fed bot lane, being into this super fed everyone from WE, and being actually half HP when you're engaged as well, which just makes it that much harder to find those openings which might solve the game for you.
Oh, Bin kind of breaking Shanks' ankles right now. They are going to have the Realm Warp, but no Mega Gnar, so TP going to be brought in. On is there as well. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow goes a little bit wayward as they get a 2-man hit there with the accelerated shock blast, and that's On taking a bit of poke himself, but everybody kind of converging up here. You still have hope in that mid lane, so it's going to be a native 5v4 for BLG, which means they should be able to acclaim this bounty, but they don't want a little bit more. They're going to go in straight away with Shun, flash burned by the Vi to make sure he stays safe, and they get nothing else, but they do get the tower.
But what they do is they just hold, they ask some questions. The questions are answered positively from WE, but throwing out the Realm Warp, just making sure that maybe there was a chance of being a kill onto Shanks, taking them off the board for a bit. Maybe you can play things through a little bit of a death through 1,000 cuts from BLG, play around the map. Of course, that's something which they have to their advantage as well. That Realm Warp allowing them to get across the map in strength, potentially before WE can do so themselves. But they don't get themselves a huge amount from that play. They get themselves an objective bounty, but they're playing around the side of the map, which is not the one with the dragon on it. So you now have 30 seconds until dragon spawns. You're not going to have vision around this objective. We talked about how actually a soul point comes in very early from WE. That could be problematic for BLG. It means that they can't stall out the map, they can't play at their own pace. And now you're dealing with going towards this dragon pit, 0 vision, and going to be looking to close that distance onto this longer range composition by going through Fog of War and getting poked out. It's a very difficult situation for BLG.
Yeah, it is. It is tough to say the least. You can see now Shun trying to make something work, but again, don't forget he just used the Cyclone. They just used the Realm Warp, and these are not insignificant cooldowns right now. We are going to see a lot of poke being put down onto Bin, so he loses his Mega pretty much at the not at the greatest time right now, because now it's ticking down without them having really any engage. And like you talked about, Nymaera, no vision. You've no real way of getting in onto this pit. You've no real way of finding an engage. And with the Mega Gnar now dissipating, they have to just accept we're not going to be able to get this. They should be able to pick up this tower in mid lane, but they are now looking down the barrel of a soul point.
Well, let's watch the Ashe Arrow.
They might look for the Ashe Arrow. It's off cooldown for the moment. Plenty of summoners available. They don't lose a tower for WE, but they get themselves on the soul point.
Okay, so BLG, they get a chunk on mid-tower, but they can't finish it off, and I think a lot of that is due to potentially Ashe Arrow coming in with the wave killed under turret. Maybe turret shots start coming through at that point and making things a little more questionable. Okay, 5 minutes until Soul is on the table now. You've got 1, maybe 2 Realm Warps in it. to try and find something around the map to get control of part of the map. Try and get some kind of lead for yourself, for BLG, before WE really start putting your feet over the flames. This is, it is certainly a test for BLG. We know that they are a team which has had some pretty outstanding results so far, like we said, coming off with some wins against some top teams in the LPL, even with just a few series played. But WE are really making them fight for this.
And look, I think WE have obviously kind of come into what we traditionally see as WE's biggest weakness from last year, and of course from this year as well. So the last year as well, last split, they were very good at the early game, and then they would just kind of fizzle out towards the mid. This time it's kind of happened, but it's happened in a way that they don't have a problem with, because it's WE kind of saying, look, we're going to fizzle out a little bit, but we're not going to have a massive problem with that, because we've already gained our advantage. We've already got the dragon stacking. We've already got ourselves into a position of power that we can force fights whenever we need to, and they know that the next fight coming up is in just over 3 minutes time, when BLG have to fight for that soul. I feel like if you give up that soul, it just means that you're just not going to be able to do anything else with this game. I feel like the Ocean Soul in particular in this setup is going to give so much sustain to so many things like the Jayce and the Cassiopeia that it's just going to become nigh impossible to actually kill things.
Yeah, even if you take a lucky skill shot, a boomerang lands, you've got a culling which takes someone down to half HP, and suddenly a volley comes in from Ashe. That's just going to be good enough tap to shrug off damage like this. Even something like a Mountain Soul, you can argue, would have less value in some specific situations in this kind of composition. But as you can see, at least BLG do have themselves the item power spikes from Lucian Nami, Imperial Mandate, and of course the 2 item spike from Lucian coming in, which will be meaning you'll see a couple more chunks like that. The question is, can they actually stick? Can they find useful chunks at useful periods of time? Baron has spawned. That means that BLG are happy to push in mid lane, threaten both sides of the map. The Ashe is coming in. Does miss.
Does miss, just barely. Doesn't burn any summoners, which is a little unfortunate. You kind of want to, at minimum, burn a flash with every use of the Ashe arrow, but as we talked about earlier, this Ashe in the mid game, it doesn't matter if you miss that arrow, because you just have so much cooldown, so much ability haste. Yeah, it's just, give it another 30 seconds, it'll be back, probably even less. But now they're just kind of controlling vision around this Baron, forcing out this trinkets, forcing out all this vision from the side of from BLG, and WE are happy to let this one go. They're saying, look, you have to keep the Gnar up towards this top side, as we see a fair chunk of damage coming out here onto Sean. A hell of a lot of damage coming out onto Sean. And this is the power of the lethality Varus, especially when you're going with a little bit more of a damage-based build for the Wukong with the blue smite. Doesn't have that extra shield that you would have from the green, so definitely going to be feeling a lot more of this poke.
That's a good point, actually. You don't have the tenacity from that, from the Moss Stomper? Moss Stomper? That's one thing I really need to get the names nailed on. I'm pretty good with most item names. Haven't really got around to the jungle pet ones yet. But you don't even have that tenacity. And when you consider the Varus ult has been thrown out by Hope numerous times to poke out that Wukong, because Wukong is the primary source of engage for BLG, that's going to be an issue. Shun is going to have an extra degree of difficulty added to their engage plans. And you can see that WE, they're not feeling like they have to be forced over towards this Baron. They're happy to say, look, we don't have to force you to be on the objective, to force you to come into us when we're at the objective. Also being on red side around Baron, you're often trapped against the pit if you're taking it as well. WE just not taking unnecessary risks. And just a continual uptick in what I thought was going to be coming out of this team. It has been a very calm, collected, and intelligent game from WE so far. After good early laning performance, WE have taken a lead and they haven't looked back so far.
Now, the big test, though, I will say, is in 30 seconds time, a little less than that, to be perfectly honest. They have the advantage, but it's been sitting around that 5,000 gold mark for quite a while, so they haven't been extending it. They haven't been gaining more off of it. They've just been holding it, but Chain of Corruption misses. Yagao moves forward. There's the arrow finally going in. They try to get the flash out of Yagao. They do. They actually lose the flash out of Vi as well. Important to note, though, they did not lose the Vi ultimate. And look at this poke coming out. Shun and Elk going to be forcing the heal out of On just to try and keep Elk some way, kind of healthy. And now with the Dragon Live, Bing goes into Mega. And this poke is starting to do a lot of work. They're starting to put in a lot of damage here. If Shun goes down, there's no fight to be had. He's dead. There's nothing else to be done. And now you can see BLG, they're running away because they're realizing, oh God, we're on a bit of a flank right now. We're going to fully engage onto the Yagao. Yagao's the only one who can really turn this one around with a petrifying gaze. Stops him in his tracks. takes him down as he looks dead face into the face of death. WE pick up 2 more kills, and this game is all but done. You're going to get to pick up the Soul, you're going to get to pick up the Baron, and there's just nothing else for BLG to be doing. Honestly, it's just felt a bit flat from them.
This is textbook. This is reading from the manual, and WE, they just have the golden pockets. They have this huge amount of damage coming out of the Varus, the huge amount of damage coming in from the Shock Blast too, and it really does just add so much difficulty for BLG to have enough HP to fight when they can finally get into range, and they just fall apart at the seams. Ocean Soul down now, Baron on the table. BLG, they might have a chance of a steal. Shun is in the area, but it's going to have to be a very difficult steal at that.
It is. They're going to try and burn him down, though, before he can go anywhere. TP comes out straight into the arrow, and the Nami dies as well. They're just walking into the meat grinder right now. Lambs to the slaughter as WE are just tearing them limb from limb. BLG are routed. BLG have nowhere to go, and BLG honestly look a bit panicked. They look like they don't really know what to do.
Well, what can you do, Bin? He's got himself an ult, but no hope, no way to close the distance again. Sat there on less than 100 HP. The Baron is taking its sweet time to die, but Volley will make sure that the Baron is joined by Gnar in death as they both go back to their respective death chambers. And WE, what more can you say, really? This has been a comprehensive performance of how you take an early game lead with this composition, and importantly to me, they haven't given BLG the easy out of just slipping up, getting lack, saying, we have the goal, don't worry. They've not given a big Cyclone over. There hasn't been a big Mega Gnar. They've taken away so much HP from the members of BLG by the time players like this come out that there's no real way for them to even fight a fighting retreat. Again, very impressive game 1 coming out from this team.
Really, really impressive. And again, like, you look at it, they've lost 1 death. It was at the Rift Herald, which was kind of like the first of maybe 3 tests. So the first test was the first Rift Herald. They were able to come out with trumps on that one. Let's have a look at the damage. Bloody hell.
That is very fair. That's fair, it's balanced, it's awesome.
I'm going to tell you right now, having to deal with Lucian Nami for many, many months at this stage, I am fine with a Nami getting obliterated.
It would be very
like
funny if they loaded in with the Sushi Nami skin for game 2, just as like a...
just saying, like, look, you know what, this is what it is.
That it is, and it does feel like this is the victory lap now. You're pushing a Baron buff, the gold lead has gone well over 11,000 at this point, edging up towards 12, and you have all of your cooldowns available. You have like a flash missing from your solo, that is about it from W. You have all your big ultimates, and Bin walking forward with Mega Gnar charge. Might be able to get 1 play, but you're still losing your bottom him, folks.
No, you're... Guys, your base. Guys. It's just kind of that setup of like, no, guys, hang on. You need to look at something else. Yes, you get a kill there, but you're losing the bot side. I will say it's a silver lining on what is an otherwise a very dark cloud. You can see Shun now.
The silver is
looking to try and maybe...
It's there, but yeah. What state is it in? For?
Absolutely. But again, like you've used the Mega Gnar, you've used the Cyclone. Guys, your base, like, it's just how you can't really defend against this. You don't have any engage options anymore.
They're 5v4 and they still can't find an engage. They don't have the Cyclone, they don't have a Flash or Mega Gnar available. The Tidal Wave is the best option they had, and they still don't find anything from that. WE gonna be finding an organized retreat from this. Mega Gnar available again, but they find the turnaround.
They find the turnaround. Lwandy picks up the kill. Now it's a 4v4 as they try and jump straight back onto Bin. There's going to be a TP coming back off back of this as well. Flash in, piercing arrow straight to the heart, and you're to blame. WE just wiping the floor with BLG. They will take this win, and honestly, it looked comfortable because BLG just never found their footing.
Yeah, Love never had a bad name. Nexus goes down, and BLG's hopes of a quick and easy series with it. Lots of questions asked in that game 1. Bot lane's early levels massively misplayed, particularly around that top side as well, with Wukong being upset early in their own early pathing from being invaded, and then of course the flash into the death and topside as well over the wall from the Gnar. Lots of bad things kind of snowballed into an unplayable mid-game from BLG. They had a lot of tools to try and get themselves back into the game, but even that didn't work because WE were really on it. They really were playing heads-up League of Legends, understanding not just how they could get ahead, but how they could stop themselves falling back and behind as well to the engage of something like a Gnar or Wukong.
Yeah, I mean, it just was like you said, and I really do want to hit this home, it was tempered in a very good way for that mid game. They kind of said, look, the only way we throw this early game is if BLG are able to get the Mega Gnar, get the 3-4-man Cyclone, and just have the Ryze and the Lucian free hitting. And I, as you mentioned, it never happened. It never came to fruition. They always had to use it to get away, to find one pick, maybe, sort of. They got a flash or two every now and again. 2 deaths in the entirety of that setup of that game. And I just really can't give any more praise that I already am to WA. I feel like this was incredibly smart. They played tempered, they played, controlled, and they just slowly suffocated out the side of BLG. There was nothing for BLG to do because by the time they arrived or had themselves set up, the objective was gone, and the WA had said, well, we don't need to take this, we can leave.
And there's a particularly fun bit in this too, because one of the, I would say probably my performer of that game maybe was Hope on the Varus. And it's Hope versus his old teammate of Yagao as well.
Yes.
Yagao on that Ryze, the most powerful pick in the mid lane right now, who could have turned that game around, and Hope just sits there with his arrows in tow and just says, I've got more than enough ammunition in the quiver, come at me. And that was a really comprehensive game through that bot lane as well. Ashe Varus, it does feel like one of those lanes where if you don't get ahead, you are just going to die on cooldown because you're two very swishy champions, but Hope really stuck the landing.
Yeah, really, really did. And honestly, just a great setup overall. And I really am excited to see what this WE team can do. I'm really excited to see what they're able to kind of come up with and move forward with. But for BLG, lots to think about. Lot to think about.
Yes.
Lots to kind of come back with. And this is a rough one. And I think it comes down, it comes down from the draft because it was incredibly telegraphed. It did feel like WE kind of said, cool, we'll give away the Lucian, Nami, we have an answer. Very much did. Cool, we'll give you the Ryze, we have an answer. The Shanks Cassiopeia, and you mentioned it just a few seconds ago, the Ryze is considered one, if not the biggest threat in the mid lane as of right now. The Cassiopeia destroyed it. 30 or 40 CS up at one point, constantly putting him under pressure. He couldn't really roam, and when he did, it wasn't really that impactful because by the time he got all his ducks in a row, it didn't matter. It was telegraphed. They knew exactly where he was going.
Yeah, so what I would temper this with is that I don't mind this draft from BLG if they don't get crushed at like minute 1 the way that they did. Because if you're playing Lucian Nami, what you're saying, particularly when you're first picking Lucian Nami, you are saying, I'm going to outplay you, I'm going to find a way to crush you in lane if at all possible, or we as a team are so good at playing around that one-item power spike that we can use that to roll through the mid game as well. Neither of those things happen. For me, if that's how you're performing on the Lucian Nami, you cannot first pick that. Not when you see that W are so well prepared to deal with that as well. I don't mind the draft, just not if you're going to play it the way that they did early on.
Yeah, honestly, I completely agree. I think that you could see BLG wanted to be aggressive. They wanted to try and stay up, but then when the game plan kind of straight away, level 1 literally doesn't go their way, it's like, okay, look, that happens. You got caught out. You now know next time around. Look, make sure you check your brush up on the top side.
You're wishing you built another hull at this point. There's water everywhere. What are we doing, folks?
But even again, like I kind of like we talked about top lane and how that went down, but it was also like the whole early game falls apart because Bin flashes over the wall blind, has no idea where the Vi is, and just decides to go in on it. There's nothing else that he can do, and then he just dies. There's nothing else for it. Bot lane is just Elk being really aggressive for no reason, and it just kind of puts them in a really bad situation. So lots of little mistakes that BLG can definitely fix. We're going to send it, though, to a quick break. And